Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Late Sunday night, but a massive update for the Auburn Tigers in the transfer portal as they land the commitment from former Georgia State wide receiver Robert Lewis. And when we started talking about the Auburn Tigers and what position groups they want to address in the transfer portal, the first position we talked about was that pass catcher position, and they add a very productive, very dynamic wide receiver in Robert Lewis. Want to talk a little bit about what Robert Lewis is going to bring to the Auburn Tigers, and then talk about a few other transfer portal targets that could be trending toward the Auburn Tigers. Before we get into it, just want to take a quick second and say thank you to you guys. It's been a blast going through all these transfer portal updates, and for the Auburn fans, that you guys continue to show a ton of support. It's going to be a busy next couple weeks in the transfer portal. I'm going to do my best to continue to update you guys with all of these roster moves. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, thank you guys so much for all the support you guys have shown the boys. And without further ado, let's get into Robert Lewis. But I first kind of want to highlight the need for this pass catcher room to get better for the Auburn Tigers. Looking back at last year, and the Auburn fans who watched Auburn play every Saturday, they know this was a need. But you take a look at the numbers, the leading receiver was the tight end Rivaldo Fairweather, and you look at that, that's not a knock on Rivaldo Fairweather, who I think is one of the better tight ends, not only in the SEC, but in the country. I think it's more of a knock on the lack of playmakers in that wide receiver room. And you have some guys that showed some serious flash, guys like Jay Fair, but not enough. And I think Brian Harsin left this program and left this roster, especially on the offensive side of the ball, with just not enough talent to compete at the upper echelon of the SEC. Hugh Freeze is quickly going to change that, and he starts off with Robert Lewis. And you look at what this wide receiver room is going to look like to start the 2024 season. You got five-star Cam Coleman coming in, five-star Perry Thompson, potentially five-star wide receiver Ryan Williams, who you're hearing a lot of buzz is going to might be flipping from Alabama, reclassifying into 2024. We'll see how that plays out. But anyway, you cut it. Cam Coleman, Perry Thompson, you add Robert Lewis. If you're an Auburn Tiger fan, you have to be extremely excited about what the pass catcher group is going to look like in 2024. And that's going to only elevate Peyton Thorne's game, who's a guy that started to show some flashes down the stretch, and you're giving him all these weapons in a Hugh Freeze offense. The offense is going to get better. Now, Robert Lewis, what I love most about Robert Lewis is, one, you go back to last year's transfer portal cycle, there was another really good Georgia State wide receiver, Jamari Thrash. He ends up transferring to Louisville and is all ACC guy. Caught for almost 1,000 yards for that Louisville Cardinals offense. So you have question marks about making that jump from Georgia State to that SEC level. You saw Jamari Thrash, Robert Lewis's teammate at Georgia State just a year ago, make some serious noise at the Power 5 level. And Robert Lewis, certainly a candidate to do the very same thing. You look at the numbers, 70 catches for 877 yards, 7 touchdowns. You can't argue with that kind of production. And you look at what he really thrives in. The thing I like about Robert Lewis, one, the proven production is absolutely there. You turn on a little bit of the film and you see a wide receiver that is really polished with his route running, knows how to create separation at all three levels. He's a guy that can work vertically down the field. Caught a football for 97-yard touchdown pass for Georgia State last year. He's really good in the intermediate routes, work in the middle of the field. But where I think he excels the most is at that underneath stuff and working after the catch. 374 yards coming after the catch for Robert Lewis. That is more receiving yards than any Auburn pass catcher had in the 2023 years. So you're getting a guy that's going to make life a little easier in this Auburn offense. When you have a wide receiver that can separate early and work after the catch, that becomes a quarterback's best friend. And Robert Lewis, a guy that you can move around, put him at the boundary, put him in the slot, a guy that is going to create separation, work after the catch. And you look at guys like Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman potentially playing on the boundary, and you put Robert Lewis on the inside. You got Rivaldo Fairweather working as that jumbo slot. You're looking at this Auburn offense and saying it's starting to come together. And we always said Hugh Freeze, he's going to have to build. I mean, he took over a program that Brian Harsin did not leave in a very good spot in terms of the standard at the Auburn program. Right? The standard at the Auburn program is competing for SEC titles, competing for national titles. That roster, especially on the offensive side of the football that Hugh Freeze took over, not even close to that level. And you saw it get better in the 2023 season. It's going to take another step in 2024. Robert Lewis, a massive addition. And I'm just excited to see all these wide receivers get into this program and see what Hugh Freeze does, chefing up these plays and chefing up all of these guys that he has to work with on the outside. A couple other guys I want to just mention that are kind of trending to Auburn. Auburn's kicking the tires on the offensive side of the football. One of the more intriguing prospects that is not going to get a ton of national media attention because he hasn't necessarily been all that productive in his college career yet, and that's Jalil Skinner. Kind of a similar vibe to Rivaldo Fairweather, jumbo slot tight end. This is a guy that whenever I watch him play at the Miami Hurricanes, I said, there's more for him. He can do a lot more than he's allowed to do in this Miami Hurricanes offense. Former top 100 national prospect from IMG, 6'5", 215 pounds, kind of one of those matchup nightmare guys. And I would love to see him be in this Auburn offense and see how Hugh Freeze decides to use a guy like Jalil Skinner. He's apparently visiting Auburn on December 15th. I personally think this would be a massive get for the Auburn Tigers in terms of a matchup nightmare that can get it done in the red zone. Again, you look at Auburn, and one of the biggest struggles they had was that explosive passing attack. I mean, one of the bottom in the country in terms of yards per pass. You got to be able to change that. Adding a guy like Robert Lewis, adding a guy like Jalil Skinner, guys who can make plays on the outside. Jalil Skinner, I think, will be an absolute weapon in the red zone, would be massive for this Auburn offense. The last guy I want to take a look at, and we've talked about this when we kind of made our wish list, Jaquan Scott, listed as the third best interior offensive lineman in the transfer portal so far, coming from Southern Miss, a guy that's played a lot of football for Southern Miss, right? In the class of 2019, he sounds like he's down between Ole Miss and the Auburn Tigers. Obviously, with Stutz Britton out of eligibility, there is some need on the inside of that offensive line to get right. Jaquan Scott, an absolute bulldozer in the run game, would be a nice addition as well. And what you're selling, if you're Hugh Freeze, you don't want to only just focus on pass protection. I feel like, and yes, pass protection, keeping the quarterback clean, obviously a massive story in running an offense, but this Auburn team wants to run the football. It has one of the best and most talented backfields in the whole entire country. And if you can get this offensive line continue to get right and dominant and get that run game going, we said when Peyton Thorne came to Auburn, the best thing you can do for a guy like Peyton Thorne is give him a strong run game. Jaquan Scott certainly going to help that come to life for the Auburn Tigers. Again, I think you got to be patient. And we said it in 2024, 2025, 2026. Those are the years for Auburn. We kind of knew there'd be some growing pains in 2023, but Hugh Freeze, with multiple cycles now to get his guys in, doing a really nice job balancing the high school class, bringing in transfers. This is a team that's going to continue, I should say, to transform and get better on the offensive side of the ball. Going to use the high school class, going to use the transfer portal. Robert Lewis, a massive addition for the Auburn Tigers. Again, appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Wanted to hop on, talk about the Auburn Tigers' latest addition in the transfer portal. I'll be doing my best to keep you guys as updated as possible for the Auburn Tigers and their roster moves. Appreciate you guys rocking with the boys. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later.